Evangelism for me can look like a big event or it can be a small event. One such event that rings a bell for me and my history is one time when I was working at City Union Mission. See, we were caring for the homeless men there in the shelter. And every night we would meet in the chapel and we'd gather together and we'd share the word. And as an employee, oftentimes I had to get up there and give that message. Well, one night, as I was preaching and delivering that message, I'm looking out in the crowd and I think I was preaching from Colossians when suddenly, out of my peripheral, I look over and there's a man standing there and he's shaking and he looks like he's in trouble. When I responded with, "Can I help you?" he immediately hit me. And it was in that moment, this shock on my face, that I didn't recognize what was going on, what was happening in this moment. Whereas one time I was preaching the word, and the next time I'm getting attacked. Well, the crowd jumped on him. And unfortunately, they began to attack him when I had to jump into the crowd, peel people back off and say, "Stop, what are you doing? Please stop, please stop." And I began protecting this man who had just a minute ago hit me. And I walked him into the office and I looked him into the eye and I say, "Why did you do that?" And he said, "Well, the devil makes me do things." And it was in that moment that I seen the pain, the hurt, the anguish on his face. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to respond. Here I was face to face with a man who says that he hit me because the devil made him. And instead I just simply said, "Well, I want to pray for you." Well, through a series of events and a lot of investment, this young man who was crippled by demons within inside of him, who was living on the streets, who had a broken and disheveled life, who very much could admit that the devil had a grip on him. We invested in him. We began bringing him into the shelter and we would pray over him. We would encourage him. Well, one day he asked to go for a ride. He said, "Jeff, I want to go for a ride. I want to talk." And here not long ago was this guy who attacked me, asking me to go for a ride because he had something important he wanted to share with me. Well, on that car ride, he looked me in the face and he goes, "I don't know if Jesus could come into my life. I don't know if Jesus could be for me. I don't know if this gospel message is true, but I want it to be. And I believe in my heart it can be." And I told him, I said, "Well, let me pray for you." And as we sat in that car and prayed, tears began to well up in his eyes, and he said, "I want to commit my life to Jesus." Fast forward a few weeks later, and he calls me up and says, "Hey, Jeff, I want to have breakfast with you. Can I meet you down at the shelter?" And so I pick him up and we have breakfast, and then he's got his Bible on his side and he's on fire for Jesus, and he thanks me for the message that I delivered, for the forgiveness that I gave him, for investing in him and not giving up on him. And that he was going to go turn himself into prison because that's the right thing to do. Having warrants out for arrest, he wanted to do what Jesus would want him to do, and that's turn himself into prison. And as the days went on, as the months went on, as the years went on, I would get a letter every once in a while from that young man thanking me for preaching the gospel. See, these are big moments. These are big events. And not everybody is going to get hit in the face while they're preaching a sermon. But what about at work? There's many times and many occasions where somebody has come to me and said, "Hey, Jeff, will you pray for me?" And I stop right there and I pray for them. I don't care who's around or what we're doing. I put my hand on their shoulder and I pray. When people ask me about the hope that's within inside of me, I always proclaim it to be Jesus first. I don't waver from being able to have Jesus on the tip of my tongue. I make sure that I stay away from gossip or rumoring. I make sure that not only is evangelism in the spoken word, it's in the unspoken word, in my behaviors and my actions. How am I being perceived by the people around me? And yeah, evangelism can seem daunting and overwhelming. But oftentimes it's not in the words that we speak. It's in the lives that we live. It's in our actions. And people will see that. And when they see your good deeds, they will glorify your Father in heaven.